Hi, this is Andrew Clark, the Logistics Linchpin, with my personal take on what is going on in business and logistics, with a particular focus on e-commerce and the supply chain. Okay, so what we are seeing is that there has been panic buying over the last month since the pandemic started to really affect Australia. Panic buying has kept Australia's retail sector chugging along, at least for supermarkets. Some of the other parts of the economy, not so good. So probably supermarkets, pharmacies doing okay. Interestingly, I've had some feedback that some of the fashion places are still kicking along okay as well. So depending on what business you're in. Anyway, so Australia's retail figures show supermarket turnovers increased by 22.6%. So all of this inventory has been sucked out of the supply chain above normal demand. And so why would that be? Well, obviously the panic buying, people think that the world is ending and so they're stocking up. So essentially everyone's gone and they've filled up their fridge, they've filled up their pantry, and all of that inventory has been sucked out of the supply chain into domestic homes. But it's like a tube of toothpaste. The consumption hole out the end of the tube of toothpaste is really only just the same size, right? People are still going to consume at the same rate. So if we've squeezed the toothpaste from bottom of the tube up closer to the hole, then what does that mean? We still have the same amount of toothpaste and it is still going to be consumed at exactly the same rate it normally is. It's just that it's gone out of the supermarkets and out of the manufacturers into people's homes. So what are people going to do? Are they going to sit on that level and just kind of keep it topped up from now? In which case we had a one-off increase in sales, which will just stay there? Or will people eventually consume all of that material and then they'll stop buying, or they'll slow down their buying and use up their own personal inventories, which means that 22.6% one-off boost to sales is going to go down over time. I pity the poor people who have to try and figure out how to plan for this and what is actually going to happen. Because I think that what will happen is that people will go, it's okay, we've gone back to normal. I will start using up all of that pasta and that rice and all of that toilet paper, and they'll obviously stop buying it. So I suspect that what will happen is that we'll see a decrease and possibly an oversupply. And of course, bullwhip effect, people will overreact to the supply and they'll ramp up their manufacturing thinking, oh, we've got a new normal situation of this sudden increase in demand. And nothing could be further from the truth. Anyway, so some interesting lessons there. We will see how that plays out in future, and I think there are a few demand managers who are scratching their heads trying to figure out what exactly is going on and how long is this going to continue. So we've obviously got a massive economic problem as half the world has kind of stopped. A whole lot of people have lost their jobs, and the government is pouring money into the economy via subsidies and JobKeeper programs and all of that sort of stuff that businesses are applying for. So fantastic, pouring money that eventually finds its way into the consumer's pockets. And that appears to be the strategy. Interestingly, this fellow over at the Australian, Adam Crichton, who was speaking to Peter Costello, he thinks that this is exactly what Australia should do. Just, forget about the fiscal responsibility, and at the moment, the only way we all get out of this alive and with some kind of semblance of normality is if we keep the economy going and we keep the cash flowing through the economy. So that's what the government is doing. Good on them. I think that probably is the right strategy. We live in a world where we have fiat currencies. People just say, this is what our currency is worth, and well, they just print it. They're printing trillions of dollars in the US, and I'm sure Australia is doing the same sort of thing, essentially just creating money out of thin air. So it will be interesting to see how that plays out, and whether the doom and gloom merchants who say that, well, you just can't do that, whether that actually is true. And in the long term, everything comes crashing down around us. Who knows? We'll see. Little update to my reporting the other day on Australia Post. Yes, they're flooded, right? And just some interesting thoughts here, stats here. Online retail department store purchases up by 473%. Fashion purchases up by 203%. So people are staying home and looking good and dressing well for their Skype calls and their Zoom calls and their whatever other interactions they're doing online. Good on them. Don't appear like so many of these celebrities in your pajamas, not having had a shower for several days. Right? Not a good look. Dress professionally, look good. Okay, this is really interesting. Just this, someone's gone up with a drone flying over Sydney just to kind of show a little bit how empty it is. Now, obviously, there are still people around and they're still exercising, but nothing like what it would have been historically, if the world was not simply all staying at home. I've been out on the road in the last couple of weeks and the traffic is super quiet. It's like, I don't know, it's like it's quieter than the quietest days I've ever experienced in city traffic. Now, I live way out west of Sydney, so going into town is now super quick if I ever have to do that. So anyway, so that is what is going on. Sydney is definitely ridiculously quiet. Now, here's some really clever thinking. Now, this is old news, so I kind of missed this, but the Easter show got cancelled. Disaster. Massively affected. I love the Easter show, and so many people love going to the Easter show. It's a bit of a corny event, but it's just classic Aussie thing to do, these sort of festivals. And the wood chopping, as always, is amazing. But think about the poor fairy floss vendors, right? These folks here, who are amazing, by the way. They've really gone full-on innovation with fairy floss flavours, and I love what they're doing. But what the Easter show people did that I thought was really, really interesting was that they said, okay, well, the Easter show's cancelled, but let's set up an online portal for our stall holders to sell through. Now, most of those guys would have just not been set up for that, so I suspect that a lot of them were like, oh, we don't know what to do. But for those who did, good luck to them. I hope that they actually that they still made some sales through that. I'm sure it wasn't anything like enough to recoup the loss of the show. And that's essentially what this story is all about here from SBS. But online, right? Why not have a virtual experience online for the Easter show that parallels what is going on physically? So the people who live in remote areas who can't get to it, maybe they can have a virtual tour. Maybe they can buy it, they can see all the stalls and they can buy from the stalls and get stuff delivered to their homes. If they had an e-commerce portal and a virtual experience of the Easter show as a regular thing, which they could have definitely have done, then people would have just gone, people could have switched to the virtual experience of the Easter show and buying things online, and it would have been more successful. So again, thinking e-commerce and thinking how the virtual can parallel the live and the real and the physical, I think that this is the future, right? Pandemic or not, I think that this is the future. You open up what you do to the world so the people who want to be part of it can be part of it, and you stand on your merits and your success as to how will you provide experiences for people. And it doesn't matter whether they're physically there or not. They can still get your amazingly salted caramel fairy floss delivered to their home and have those little corny souvenir bags and the chocolates and all that kind of stuff that you get from the sample bags from the shows. Anyway, e-commerce, Easter show, great. Should be more of it. And we talked the other day about Myer hiring 2,000 extra workers because of their own personal e-commerce boom for the department stores. But in the US, this is back in March, Amazon hired over 100,000 new roles, both part-time and full-time, new roles to keep up with their demand. And they increased the hourly rates by $2 an hour because, in the US, the whole minimum wage thing is very contentious. And so what has actually happened is that the US, which is already something like 50% of the online retail market in the US, and probably growing, who knows, more than that now, they are just massive, and they've had to hire 100,000 new people. Anyway, good on Amazon, but this is the mark of what's happening as e-commerce spreads throughout the economy and just becomes increasingly the dominant mode of retail trading. And I think that's where it is going. We are not there yet in Australia. Last year it was like 9%. Who knows what it is now? It must be like 50%, during this pandemic, but it'll drop back down again, but probably not to 9% again. I think it'll be a permanent step change in that people will get used to using e-commerce. I was speaking to a guy just yesterday, and he was telling me about his dad, who is, he's an older guy and never bought anything online. But now he's been forced to, and he's actually gone, now that he's got over that, I can actually buy online, and it is okay, and the stuff did turn up, he'll start doing more of it. And I think that's what will happen. People will actually just get used to buying online during this period, and they won't stop buying online. So some of those sales are now permanently taken away from physical stores and will only happen online for some people. Back in March, they predicted petrol prices would soon drop to $1 a litre, and indeed, if we look at Petrol Spy today, that is exactly what has happened. For many petrol stations in and around Sydney in the sort of the low to mid 90s, but we have, I think the lowest price I can see here, 77.5. I'm sure if we probably went further out Western Sydney, we might even see some cheaper prices into the 80s. No, only one at 77.5. So that is interesting. And here we go. Yep, no, 90s and 80s, and yep, just in touching into the 70s. So petrol price is well and truly less than $1 a litre. So that prediction came true. Unfortunately, none of us are driving, right? And that's why petrol price is cheap, because none of us are driving. So supply and demand is of course, you know, that rule always applies, and there's just no demand. So if you're able to take advantage of that, great. Transport companies must be loving this, right? Hopefully when you get your next freight bill, your fuel levy is 0 or negative, because fuel prices dropped so much by about 30%. So I hope that's actually being reflected in the fuel prices, because if you're a transport company now, you potentially have more volume because of e-commerce, and you have lower fuel prices. So two big things: increase in volume that generally makes your efficiency and your profit margins higher, and your costs have gone down with fuel. So anyway, that is all I have for you today. And as always, if you need some help with your logistics, then you can book in with me for a free 30-minute logistics checkup, and we'll work out a bit of a plan to help you improve your logistics right now. And there may be even some exciting things we can do together in a project. All right, you can reach me on the website at logisticshelp.com, and I will see you in the next video.